Jenny Bell from Clarington, Ohio, and I'm listening to Barbecue Central.
Let's go!
We'll do it live. Okay. Well, do it live! I'll write it and we'll do it live!
So to get that perfect barbecue, you use wood. Are you sure it's safe? Whatever. We put the lighter fluid on, strike the match, and... Oh! Should we call the fire department? That might be a good idea.
Welcome to the Really Big Barbecue Central Show. This is the show that talks about all things important in the world of barbecue and grilling. The show originating from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame city, Bomb City, USA, Cleveland, Ohio, the barbecue capital of the North Coast. I am your program host, Greg Rempe. Happy to have you aboard here on your Tuesday evening's live fire fun and frivolity show. If you want to get in touch with the show this evening, if you'd like to follow the show socially, here's all that info.
You can get in touch with the show by sending an email to Greg at bbqcentralshow.com. Follow us on all the social media channels at BBQ Central Show. And be sure to subscribe to the show podcast feed on your favorite podcast platform.
Anything else you want to find out about the show can be found at the main website, thebbqcentralshow.com. And here's what's happening in case you can get the newsletter. By the way, you can subscribe to the newsletter over at the newly revamped thebbqcentralshow.com website. So do that if you haven't already. And as a gift for signing up, you get my homemade barbecue sauce recipe, which I've said many times, you can claim solely as your own, take it to market, make millions, chip me off 30%. I believe that is fair in this business environment these days. After all, I did all the legwork. All you have to do is go into business and take that risk. And as a thanks, 30% back to me off the top line revenue here, folks. We're not nickel and diming on profit. I want top line. Anyway, outside of that, here's what's happening in case you can get the newsletter coming up in about 12 minutes from now. What do we know about the world of live fire cooking here over the last 3 years and 4 years, potentially 5 years? One portion of this industry, one sector of this cooking landscape has been dominated and continues to gain in popularity with the griddle cooker or the flattop or the flattop griddle, whatever you want to call it. Freestanding cooking appliance with a flat top on it for smash burgers and such. It's captivated the consuming public. It's captivated the barbecue and grilling generation. And there's a number of different manufacturers out there right now. And tonight we will have a conversation with one of the upstarts, although they've been around for 5 or 6 years at this point, but really seen them come on the scene here over the last few years, especially with some help like darlings of the barbecue influencer community like Matt Pittman over at Meat Church. We will talk with Mac Plummer, who happens to be the founder and El Jefe of Loco Cookers. 11 minutes from now. 35 past the hour because it is the third Tuesday of a month. We will be joined by the creator of cookoutnews.com website, Wes Wright. There's plenty of business to talk about in the world of live fire, and Wes is all about it. Live, local, late breaking. That will wrap the first hour. We'll move to the second hour after that. And finally, after 18 years of doing this show, I will have him on what many consider to be the godfather of barbecue rub, the creator of the product called Butt Rub and the corresponding website, buttrub.com. Byron Chism joining me. I'm excited to talk to Byron for the first time here. We did a sound check earlier today, and he brought huge energy then when it didn't count. So when it counts, he's going to be bringing Maximo energy, which I'm certainly going to appreciate. So Byron Chism for the first time on this show, 14 past the second hour. And then we will close the show out with our quarterly guest and the Texas Monthly barbecue editor, Daniel Vaughn, on location across the nation. He has brought his mic with him. He has packed it in the bag. He'll be sounding loud and proud wherever he is. We'll get an update on that. We have plenty to talk about with Daniel, not the least of which is the passing of two Texas barbecue giants in their own right. So we'll talk to Daniel about that, amongst other things. So that's how the show's laying out. Mac Plummer from Loco Cookers here shortly. Wes Wright after Mac. And then in the second hour, Byron Chism of Butt Rub and Daniel Vaughn closing out the show. Don't forget you can follow me socially, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Snapchat at BBQ Central Show. We say good evening to those of you watching tonight through one of our video streaming platforms. You can go to Facebook or Twitch/BBQ Central Show to watch. Also, you can take in the show via YouTube, which is youtube.com/@BBQ Central Show. And, of course, we have a new YouTube poll question of the week, and I'm asking everybody this. When it comes to brisket and ribs, are you fatty and spares? Are you fatty and baby back? Are you lean and spares? Or are you lean and baby back? And currently, 75% of you that are voting say 75% of you say fatty and spares. I'm with you. That's me all day long, fatty and spares. Love the fat content and all of those things. To me, a properly, expertly executed piece of fatty brisket. Few things compare in life to that, except from a well-executed spare rib. Two of my favorite things, no doubt. So we will continue to track that. We'll ask all the guests here to show up here this evening, and we'll see where it lays out. By the way, last week's poll ended in a tie between sweet and savory and, or what was it, thick and sweet and thin and vinegary. At the very end, it ended in a tie, so we'll have to repost that one down the road. Let's start here this evening. This is usually where we do a little recap and feedback from the show last week, which, by the way, it was a great show. Dave Raymond was tremendous first time on, technically second time on, but first time long form. Robert Moss was on fire. Grillin' with Dad made his debut appearance on the show. And Mike McLeod from the World Food Championship dropped the bombs as it relates to current and potential barbecue series. The one making the most noise through the week, of course, was the one related to Sam's Club. Everybody thinking that's going to be a reboot of what was happening with the KCBS years ago. More on that as it unfolds. But all of that pales in comparison to the news that I'm about to break here this evening.
A Barbecue Central Show exclusive news update.
Greg Rempe reporting from the breaking news desk here in Cleveland, Ohio, the city that breaks the most live fire breaking news across the nation. Nay, the globe. Coming in as an official press release below from none other than Meathead at AmazingRibs.com, and the subject is, and I quote, "The Meathead Method book will be delayed until spring of 2025. In a quote from Meathead, "As you know, I have been working on a new book, The Meathead Method, for several years now, and 7 days a week for the last year. Last year, I signed up with HarperCollins. I wrote enough for 2 books and hoped HarperCollins would go for it, but supply chain issues have hit the publishing industry, and management is concerned about how paper prices and printing costs could impact the book's price. So they have put a page count limit on the book. I'm working on making the cuts, but it's a big job. So we have decided to postpone the publication date of the book until spring 2025. It takes about a year from first draft manuscript to get it edited, designed, printed, and into distribution. As disappointed as I am, there is good news in this. It gives me time to polish a few things. Heck, I may just publish the Meathead Manifesto with the stuff I am cutting from the Meathead Method book. Yes, I am on the record as saying that the process is so difficult that the Meathead Method will be my last book. And I have said that if you hear me saying I am working on another book, please shoot me. You may begin target practice now for those of you who tell me you are anxiously awaiting the Meathead Method book. So am I. Hang in there with me, please. Love and affection. Meathead from AmazingRibs.com. Now, I'm sure all of you are just waiting and biding your time, ready for me to pile on here and give Meathead the what for and the business and all these other weird terms that people say or don't say anymore. But I'm not going to do that. I will afford Meathead the professional courtesy. He sent me this official press release. I don't know if it went out over prwire.com or anything like that. I'm guessing not. It probably just came to me. So I'm sharing it with you in case you are one of the thousands or millions of people waiting for the Meathead Method book. It will be delayed. And when Meathead shows up on the second Tuesday of next month, then we will talk all about what's going on and if there's anything behind the scenes, subterfuge being run, who knows? But we will ask all of those questions with all of the sharpened points over the next few weeks as I craft them. We will have Meathead on this show, and he will answer them. He will not rebuff me. He will answer, no doubt. So if you're wondering how the process is going with the Meathead Method book, there you have it, a live update. Mac Plummer is coming up next. Before we talk with Mac, I'll talk to you about pits and spits. Let me ask you something. Are you tired of settling for mediocre grilling experiences? Yeah, of course you are. You're listening to this show. You've decided to step the game up. Well, it's time to step the backyard game up as well and bring ultimate flavor and cook to the backyard barbecues across the nation. Pits and Spits charcoal grills offering the highest quality live fire cooking experience that you can get in the market today using either wood or charcoal. Their solid fuel grills produce those classic flavors you're looking for when it's time to fire up the grill in the backyard and cook for those family and friends. With a large adjustable fuel tray, you can raise and lower the fire to control that fine-tuned heat temp. It's like their take on the very popular Santa Maria-style grills that you're seeing out there in the market today. However, this one's just got a nice little wheel that raises and lowers the fuel drawer. How nice is that? Of course, you know the quality is insane. Not only will it be around for your life, but however many kids you have, they're all going to be fighting over who gets it bequeathed to them. And then your grandchildren are going to be fighting over it as well. It's an heirloom piece that gets handed down from generation to generation. Check them out at pitsandspits.com/BBQ Central Show. And if you pull the trigger on one of those sweet-ass charcoal cookers, use the code Charcoal Central. That's right, Charcoal Central for $150 off any grill. That's pitsandspits.com/BBQ Central. And remember, the Pits and the Spits is spelled with the double T on the pits and the double T on the spits. pitsandspits.com/BBQ Central Show. We are back to talk flat top griddle cookers with Mac Plummer right after this. Stick around, be right back.
You're listening to the BBQ Central Show. Broadcasting live from the BBQ Central Show studios in Cleveland, Ohio. You're listening to the BBQ Central Show. Once again, here's your host, Greg Rempe.
Welcome back. This portion of the show being brought to you by cookinpellets.com, your number one source for quality wood pellets for all your pellet-driven cookers. You visit cookinpellets.com and check out all their flavors, and then go to Lowe's.com or Walmart.com or Amazon.com and get great shipping rates on 40-pound bags of cooking pellets by brand of choice, cookinpellets.com. Longtime sponsor of this show. Gang, one thing we know for sure is that griddle cooking is not just a flash in the pan. Indeed, it is big business, and it appears to be here to stay, and stay in a big way. We'll talk more about that with Wes Wright here in just a little bit later on in the show. But right now, we're going to talk to someone who is bringing his own brand to market. We'll learn all about the line and how it differs from the growing number of other griddles available for sale as well. First-time guest joining me here on the show is Mac Plummer. Hey, Mac, how are you, pal?
Hey, what's up, Greg? How's it going?
Let's go with the YouTube poll question of the week, Mac.
Let's go.
When it comes to brisket and ribs, are you fatty and spares, lean and spares, or are you fatty and baby back or lean and baby back?
There is nothing about the lean part that I'm really into, so it's definitely fatty, and I could do either way. But I would say Probably Fatty and Spares.
Fatty and Spares. That's right. Well, good news. 69% of the YouTube voting public agrees with you and me. Fatty and Spares has it. 23% coming in at Fatty and Baby Back, and then Lean and Baby Back has 8%. I can't believe somebody listening to my show would choose Lean and Baby Back.
Right.
But hey, everybody has an opinion. Everybody has a vote here. We don't shit on anybody too much, but we'll move away from there. Let's go ahead. Hey, before we get into griddle talk specifically, let's get a little background on you. Are you somebody that has always been in the live fire industry in some form or fashion?
Yeah, for almost 20 years at this point, I guess. So I've been around a lot. And then, as a kid growing up in the Southeast, around cooking in the backyard, either my dad, my uncles, family. So, yeah, it's always been a part of my life. Probably some of my best memories have been in the backyard around a fire of some point, around a grill of some point. Some of the best stories that, hey, don't tell mom, those kind of stories as a little kid. And some of the best food also. A lot of times my experience as a kid was we had some of the best meat around the grill before it ever got to the table with everybody else. You know what I mean?
Professionally similar, or did you do other careers prior to Loco?
Yeah, so I actually cut my teeth in this industry at Masterbuilt. I was a Masterbuilt for 9.5 years. John is McLemore, still a good friend of mine. Know the family really well, very close to them. And, they hired me probably before it made a lot of sense to even hire me. I'm not sure I brought a lot to the table in the beginning. You know what I mean? That's why I always thank John. Hey, man, thank you for taking a risk on me. I'm not sure I would have done the same, but good people worked there, had an awesome success story. You know John very well. I know you've had him on the show, him and his son, J2. And great people. Learned a tremendous amount and took a hiatus for about a year with a hunting company before I started Loco. So it's been a pretty fun ride. Loco's 6 years old as of last month, Greg.
When you look back at the time at Masterbuilt, you said you learned a lot. Is there one or two things that really stick out to you that you learned from John or that John mentored you on that you carry today?
Yeah, there were many things. One of the things I've always really appreciated about John is he just had a zeal for everything that he got into, and he would rally the troops around what he wanted to do. And I think I've told you before, actually, he would sort of will things into happening, and I mean that in a good way. He would say, "Hey, this is what we're going to do," and then he would make it happen with a good team. We had really good products. It was a good time. The electric smoker was sort of new. It was kind of like it was really before pellets even were on track line, or really even by was following that kind of business. And so it was a lot of fun, and we did a lot of really fun things. And so I learned that. And then also, just how to build a brand. I think he and his team was really good at building a brand, did some things outside of the norm. It was my first experience, for example, on live TV, QVC, for example, live radio. Did a ton of radio advertising, which I thought was brilliant because back at that time it was really before there was a lot of Sirius XM radio. And so you had a captive audience. And at the time of year when we would buy those radio spots, we weren't really competing with a lot of people because it was times of year where it wasn't, big holidays, that kind of thing. It's kind of cheap advertising. So that, and then also the whole manufacturing process. And I got to go to China for the first time. I think I went 20 times maybe with Masterbuilt to China, and I've been 20 times since, which is kind of funny for Loco.
So you said you've been in
right.
business for 6 years?
6 years, yeah.
What's the
6
meaning
years
behind the name? I look at Loco, and quickly I assume it means something about being crazy, or maybe you're taking this wild risk, whatever. But is there something behind Loco other than just seeing a name and associating with crazy?
So it's funny, internally, we have a number of things we talk about on our team that's, internal text chains and email chains. And we say, hey, we have a Loco idea. And that's when we know that, if I say that or my partner Blake says that, our team kind of takes a deep breath because, okay, what are we going to do now? But Loco actually came from, it was short for low country. And so the first product that we actually made was a crawfish boiler. And if you're not really in the crawfish area of the company or the country, low country boil, right? You can use shrimp instead of crawfish. And so that's kind of where the name came from. It's much cooler today than it was the day we came up with Loco, like you and I talked about. At first it was like, okay, it's a funny name, but it doesn't mean anything. So yeah, it's been a really fun ride. 6 years, and I feel like we're just getting started in a lot of ways. But it's been a lot of fun.
You had mentioned during our sound check that you had some really great relationships over at Lowe's when you were originally going into some of those, big box retailers with that Loco type products with the broil or boil, fry, steam stuff that we had talked about.
Steam, yeah.
Did you envision Loco's success? This is just an overall question. Did you envision the company's success being tied to some huge retailer like this?
Well, it's funny because so when I started at Masterbuilt, John and our general manager at the time had really good relationships at QVC and at Lowe's, and those were at the time the two big customers for Masterbuilt. And I came back from a trip, and I told my wife when I first started working, I said, well, this is either going to go really well or I'm going to get fired quickly. And she's like, what do you mean? I said, well, they gave me the two accounts that John and the general manager handled themselves. And so I said, it's time to get to work. And so I spent a lot of time in Mooresville, met a lot of really, really fine people in Mooresville, still have a lot of really close friendships. In fact, when we turned 6, when it's funny how I guess people get notified of an anniversary for work for LinkedIn or whatever, and I just got blown up, and probably half of them were my buddies at Lowe's. A couple of them are retired now, some of the senior guys, but yeah, really good relationships there, and that's what I did for Masterbuilt. That's what I did for John. So I built. There was a time when we almost bought a house in Mooresville or that area, and then almost bought an apartment in Westchester, PA for QVC. And that's really where I spent most of my relational equity, if you will, building relationships with, top to bottom at those two organizations. And it paid off. I mean, Masterbuilt had a really good product at a really good time, and we fit a need. And it's just a lot of fun.
You make a interesting move. So you have great success with that initial equipment line that Lowe's is taking for you, and then griddles are coming up. So I guess two-part question. What are you seeing in the environment that says we need to start to think about getting a griddle online? And then why isn't it being offered to Lowe's? Why is it at Home Depot now?
Well, it's interesting. So Lowe's got behind us in a big way for boil, fry, steam, and that was a huge success. We replaced a brand that had been in there for years, and we had a different twist. So everything that we do, we try to do it better. So in a good, better, best, we really kind of want to own the better. And so internally, another one of our little things is if we can't do it better, we're not going to do it. And so in boil, fry, steam, we did that. We have a turkey fryer that has more technology than any propane turkey fryer that's ever been made. And that's not a business that a lot of other companies wanted to go after, but we saw it as an opportunity, as a brand building opportunity to get into a major big box retailer. And for us, if we could break even, which is hard to make any money in propane turkey fryers, except the retailer is allowed to do that. But because it's not just, it's traditionally there's a premonition about frying turkeys, in your garage, in your house, burning down the house, that kind of thing. Well, we came up with the technology that actually, makes it a lot safer and easier to do that. And so that allows us to get in and really have a ton of success. And then as we were growing, the whole time we were working on griddles. So griddles it's not a new thing. Blackstone has done a really, really good job of building what I call sort of primary demand for this type of cooking. And I think that Blackstone has a fine product also. We thought that there was an opportunity to, make it better. And one of the ways to make it better was to try to solve what we affectionately call griddle creep, which is if you put your griddle on low, no matter where you live, over time, because the nature of the product and how it's, what it is, it's just it'll get hotter and hotter and hotter and hotter, even on a low setting. And so our idea was, well, what if you could set a temperature on the griddle, on the surface of the griddle, and it would maintain that temperature, whether you lived in, Albuquerque or Seattle or Mobile or New York City. And that's what we went after. And it took a while actually for us to really work out the kinks in that. And we were probably 2 years later in releasing that. And, it's funny, Greg, you asked about the whole Lowe's connection. I think if we had been able to release it when we wanted to initially, then maybe it would have turned out differently. But by the time we were able to release it, Lowe's had, they had formed a partnership with Blackstone, and by the same token, when we went to meet with Home Depot, they said, we're in. We want it all. And so Lowe's wasn't able to say they want it all because of the Blackstone relationship. And so it was just one of those, we don't take a lot of credit for it, if I'm being frank. We just feel like it was we had a good product at the right time, and we were able to take advantage of it.
When you talk about this unique feature, the smart temp technology that you have on the griddles, how does it happen? I'm as dumb as they come, so I'm akin to believe that regardless of what technology you have or what separators, Traeger talks about having these 3 separate zones, I don't see anything separating them. So any heat underneath it, like you were talking about, the griddle creep, to me it seems like that would just go across from one manufacturer to the next. So how do you prohibit that?
Well, so it's funny that you say that, because now we're working on a whole campaign to actually show people, we're calling it Under the Hood. And it shows you how it shows people just like you and probably a lot of other people, how do you do it? And hey, full disclosure, I asked our engineers, okay, how are we doing this? Like, how does it happen? You know what I mean? Because my discipline is really more the marketing, the branding, the sales side, and Blake, his discipline is more the technology, product development, and sourcing. And so I asked him, I said, dude, okay, that's awesome. And how are we going to do that? And a lot of it is the dividers. And now ours underneath are welded into the bottom of the griddle top itself. But we're actually going to have a whole campaign. It's going to start on social media, showing people how it happens. And this is probably a new development. It's not in the market yet. We have a version 2 coming out that won't talk too much in detail about, but it actually, when it's on the floor in the Home Depot, will have the griddle top lifted up, so the average consumer, and we'll have POP underneath the griddle top that shows how it does what it does.
Is it only available in Home Depot? Can you get it online?
You can get it online. Yep. But
same models
across
across retailers, whether it's online or at Home Depot, doesn't matter. It's not like Home Depot gets a HD version.
No, they don't. But it's Home Depot, Bass Pro Cabela's, Ace Hardware. So those are sort of our anchor retail partners, if you will. Brand retailers that I have a ton of experience with. They seem like a good fit to do what we're doing, and a good, better, best. And I'll tell you this: a lot of people are coming out with griddles. You made that that remark also. And we had an opportunity years ago to come out with a griddle and just put the Loco badge on it, and it would have been just like everybody else's griddle. But we don't really feel like that's what consumers are looking for, because if you're going to look for that, you might as well just buy a Blackstone, because they are the brand, right? So we said, hey, if we're going to put our badge on it, it's going to be different. Traeger, their griddle, it had to be different to have the Traeger badge on it, and so we like to, relate ourselves a little bit more closely to Traeger in the grilling world for mass market. It's a brand we really think are doing the right things. And so, but again, I would say they're closer to the best than the better, and a good, better, best.
What are the temperature variants on the burners?
So low is about 225, and then sear is 500 plus.
And then are you in increments of 5, 10, 25, 50?
Yep. 5 degree increments on the version we have in the market right now. Yep.
Now, if you go to Loco
So like,
Cookers,
for example,
yeah, go ahead.
Pancakes, 350, right? That's my setting for pancakes. Bacon is 275. And that may not seem like a big difference, 75 degrees. Nope. Bacon takes the longest of anything you ever cook on the griddle, in my experience anyway. But I always do my bacon first because it seasons the griddle, and anything else that I cook after the bacon is going to taste amazing because, who doesn't love bacon?
No doubt.
But you got to do the bacon right, and you got to do the bacon first. And there's no better way to eat bacon than off a griddle, in my opinion.
If you go to lococookers.com and you click on the flagship product, the 36-inch griddle, you have a couple really good reviews right up there. And then all of a sudden we go to wanted to love it. And then whatever the sob story is. Poor execution on a good-looking griddle, 2 stars. 1 star, don't buy this in all caps. 1 star, horrible. 1 star, really bad grill. What's going on with this? And why are they still on the website? How dare you be so ethical?
Well, I mean, Greg, what you got to remember is we're a young company. And to play with these big boys, you got to have thick skin. And, there's a lot of brand presence around some of these brands. And there's some pretty, big loyalists, right? And so it's you should almost expect that. And if we actually reach out to all those consumers that write even the poor reviews because we want to know, hey, what actually happened? Sometimes we don't get in touch with them, shocker. Sometimes they're not available. They just wanted to leave a bad review. Sometimes they're not verified purchases, but there are sometimes people get a product and they truly do have a bad experience. And that sucks, man. It sucks when everybody has a bad experience because that's not the expectation. The expectation is you buy our product, you have a great, but the reality of it is, you can buy a brand new Mercedes and you can have a bad, experience with a brand new Mercedes. So we just want to, as we grow and we get more presence, I mean, as the volume gets bigger, we want to eliminate mistakes. You're not ever going to eliminate all the mistakes, but at least minimize them, right? And when I was a kid, my dad, when he taught me how to hunt and how to, shoot a gun, is aim small, miss small. And so that's kind of how we, that's kind of our theory is, hey, let's aim small, miss small. Well, now we're sort of at the dance, if you will. And we're in all the, we're basically in the retailers we want to be in strategically, and we're going to grow with those retailers. We're not going to sell to every retailer, but our goal is the same. And so it's really hard when you have, as a young company, 6 years old, and a retailer says, hey, we want you to make a smoker and we want to put it in every single store we have. And they have hundreds and hundreds of stores, right? It's really hard to sit back and go, I can ship it next fall. And they're like, no. Like, we want it in the store next fall. Like, we want it in the store in, September of 2024. That's the hardest part about what we do in the mass market, is to say, we're with you. We appreciate it. We want to have it in there, but we won't have it down until next fall. We can't ship it until next fall.
Are you in a position to say no? Do you feel
because
you're tied into this particular retailer, maybe you only have 4 or 5 of them when you're a company that's growing, you're 6 years old, and if you have 4 or 5 accounts, you lose one. That's a big deal. I mean, that's a fifth of the business. So are you allowed to say no because that's not your core competency?
100%. And, it's funny that you say, are you allowed to say no? I think that's a really funny way to look at it because I think, most of the time you want to say yes. And look, I'm a salesman, right? I mean, that's really probably what I'm the best at is selling. And it's hard to say no. But if you look at the long term, where do you want your company to be? We have no goals for revenue projection, anything like that. Sure, we have internal goals we want to hit every year. We want to grow revenue, we want to grow profitability, but we don't have a goal like we want to be a $400 million company in 2 years, right? And we're not today, just before you ask. But we do want to grow, but at the end of the day, we want to create products that when people see the Loco badge on it, they think, okay, I got to check this out because they must have thought of something that I need in the backyard. That's the ultimate goal. And I think over time, if we do it right, and I hope we are doing it right, that consumers will realize that it may not be perfect every single time, 10 out of 1,000, people may hate us, right? But the vast majority of people will think, but those are good guys. And if there is an issue, they stand behind it and they do most of what they do really, really, really well. And we've seen that in boil, fry, steam. And as we get into the griddle category, which we are now, and then we do have a charcoal kettle grill that's in every Home Depot, and we have a smoker coming out actually next fall. We are going to ship it next fall. But we've been working, like it's a good example. We've been working on that smoker for 3 years now, legit 3 years. just tweaking it, trying to get it just right. And we're really, really close, and we should be able to ship it next fall. So that's probably the hardest thing is you have this great idea. Like you and I are drinking a beer in your backyard, and you're like, Mac, this is what you should do. I'm like, yeah, man, we should do it. It might be 2.5 years before we even ship it. And then I'm like, Greg, you remember that? No, I don't remember anything. Like it's been 2.5 years.
Man. Mac Plummer joining us here on the show, and the website is lococookers.com. So the good news is this. We have plenty to talk about the next time you're on. We talk about that charcoal grill. Obviously, we'll talk about that smoker as well for the barbecue fans. And certainly appreciate you coming on for the first time here. Give us a little background about yourself and talking about the griddle cookers. And we'll do it again soon. Appreciate the time.
Awesome, Greg. Thanks, man. Have a good
night.
night.
Mac Plummer right there, breaking it all down as it relates to the flat tops and standing up to those reviews that are left right on the website there. I'm sure a lot of companies would feel obligated almost, even internally, just to go scrub those off, especially if they've reached out and tried to make it right, found out that they were maybe just there to cause trouble versus anything else. However, they're up there, and he's ready to talk about it. So impressive that he's standing up to those and owning it. If you are interested, lococookers.com on the website, that 36-incher is currently sold out. At least that's what it says on the website. So not sure when they'll show back up, but you might want to call your Home Depot that's local to you and see if they got one there if you're interested in it. Wes Wright is ready to rock and roll here, so we will reload and be back in 1 second. Stick around, be right back.
You're listening to the Barbecue Central Show. Howard Stern, Jim Rome, Dan Patrick, and Greg Rempe. The Mountain Rushmore of talk show entertainment. Now, let's get back to the Barbecue Central Show.
And we're back. We thank Mac Plummer from Loco Cookers joining us last segment. This portion of the show being brought to you by Fireboard. You know what? I'm throwing this read out. Forget it. We're talking about the Fireboard Spark here tonight. I'm using it 5 times a week. I'm using inside, outside. The instant read meat thermometer is incredibly legit. I checked it in boiling water and in cold, so I know that the temperature swings are there where they need to be. And the fact that it is also a one-channel Fireboard is incredibly convenient. So as long as you have the probe, stick it in one end, stick it in the meat, and away you go. I mean, it's got timers. You can do all sorts of things with this. So at $150, I mean, what are you waiting for? Hurry up, get it. It'll replace everything else you got. It's great. Love the Spark from Fireboard. Fireboard.com is the place to go to get yours. My next guest tonight, the creator of cookoutnews.com and the third Tuesday of the month regular guest. Of course, we are welcoming back Wes Wright to the show. Wes, before we get going here this evening, we have a YouTube poll question of the week, as always. So we're wondering where you might fit in on this question. When it comes to brisket and ribs, are you fatty and spares, fatty and baby back, or lean and baby back, or lean and spares?
I like lean and spares.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Lean. Oh. 63% of the voting public are fatty and spares. I fall into that category. And fatty and baby back is coming in second at 26%. Lean and baby back, 11%. And 0% are saying lean and spares. Except you.
Except me.
That's right.
One of a kind.
Officially announced 2 weeks ago, and we've been talking about it in secret for what appears to be like 2 months, but we had maybe talked about it last month, but officially made public the sale of Danson's Grills to W.C. Bradley. Of course, brands that you would know include Charbroil, Sabre, Oklahoma Joe's, and the list goes on. How do both sides benefit from this transaction?
Yeah, I think, with on the W.C. Bradley side, where they were, I would say, weak is in the pellet grill category. They had the Ryder, but it didn't seem like it had a huge market share. And that's really what the Danson's grills were all about. Is they make I think they have a gas grill too, but it's 90% pellet grills. So it for WC Bradley, it shores up that section of the market. And for Danson's, I just had this gut feeling, and I mentioned it a couple times in your show that they probably or possibly had some financial issues. So I think for them, this is a way out. Somebody with deeper pockets that can shoulder whatever burden they were dealing with.
Two questions to follow up on that. Where do you think this slots WC Bradley in relation to the other big companies in today's live fire landscape?
So, they don't release financials, but I had seen information that Weber was about, not quite twice as big as Charbroil alone. So you factor in those other brands, I'd say they're, a couple 100 million, maybe under Weber. That's my just, back the envelope math.
When you have a buy and a sell, do you think WCB eliminates anyone at Danson's, or just to like use their own people going forward? Or have you heard anything about that?
I haven't heard anything. That is the unfortunate part of an acquisition. It's bad, but there's good elements to it. It's bad, obviously, because they have, Danson's is based out of Arizona, I believe.
Yeah.
So, they have to decide if it makes sense to have, a separate headquarters out there. There's, I'm sure, layers of management or whatever that don't make sense to have at both brands, or even, multiple when it comes to Danson's. So, there may be some overlap that they get rid of, but as a result too, the flip side of that coin is it's a stronger company now too, is that, it'll emerge from this where it could have possibly had other, worse consequences otherwise.
Last time you were on the show, I asked you how many grill companies were in financial distress. You just kind of touched on it a second ago. It appears the Danson's might have been one of them. Do you think that they might have fell victim to believing that the level of buying during the pandemic was going to stick? That was now table stakes?
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. It seemed like they were ramping up production, and then all of a sudden they were, they never officially announced it, but I saw enough evidence online that they were doing layoffs and things like that as soon as the market turned, which to me, that means you didn't plan it correctly, because otherwise you would have assumed the market would have gone down and you would have staffed accordingly.
On the Bradley side, you talked about the Ryder DLX pellet cooker not catching on. Why not? I have two in my backyard, and it's really good. It doesn't have a lot of tech, but it's a robust build. It works great. The searing option, like the handle that opens or closes the direct access to the firebox, works really well. I think when it's in smoke mode and you have something on the bottom grate over the top of the firebox, I can run a little hot. But if you know how to finagle it a little bit, that thing is a solid cooker for, $1,100 or less.
Yeah, it looks nice. I don't know if they marketed it appropriately originally, because they don't have, like with some of the other makers, they don't have it in any of the big box stores that I can think of. At least I don't think they sell them through Lowe's, which would be the logical place for them. So where do you see them really? You just don't see them around. I never saw anyone that bought one, so I don't think they put enough behind it to compete with what Traeger was doing. And they were really catching fire and found some great brand identity.
Wes Wright joining us here on the show, cookoutnews.com's website, which you should be frequenting multiple times a week. I always say Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, if not every day. You put out an article on the 14th going over a number of barbecue and grilling statistics on various topics. The survey was created by Butcher Box, which is like a custom meat ordering thing. So obviously they were doing some information gathering about the environment or, the particular industry. And some of the lead stats were 38% of people grill year-round. Is this a higher or lower number than you thought?
I think it's probably a little higher than I thought, but at the same time though, especially when you consider the holidays, Traeger's been saying that some of their biggest usage days are like Thanksgiving and Christmas and things like that. So, there are people doing it. part of the country also doesn't get as bitterly cold as it does up here. But um, and then even beyond just year round, people that stretch it beyond that, Memorial Day to Labor Day thing, it's a lot of people that go beyond that.
The other stat that jumped out was that 77% of people polled want to grill more than they already do. What's the fix to converting that? Like, that seems like such an odd stat to put out.
Yeah, and it's a blend there. Some were that they associate grilling with gatherings or something like that. So some of that is just messaging and marketing, that you can use it for more than that. And I think there is still a segment of the populations that's just overall intimidated by using the grill, and they're not confident that they'll cook the way that they want. So that's a lot of that's the grill companies have to do more with getting the word out that it doesn't have to be so scary. And especially with all the connected grilling, and a lot of them just basically do it for you. So some of that's messaging on the grill company's part.
There's a portion of the survey on what grills and smokers people owned, and this is people that actually took part in the survey, and it breaks it down: charcoal grill / smoker, gas grill / smoker, pellet grill, Kamado grill, electric, portable, flat top, and other. From the survey and the figures above, I was most surprised to see the low percent of ceramic cooker owners. What does the ceramic grill industry as a whole need to do in order to boost the image, or at least become less stale?
Yeah, that's a tough one, and I was thinking about that too. Like if you were going to recommend a grill to somebody, who's the person that you recommend a Kamado grill to?
I have to say this, and I'm not being antithetical just to be it. It's like the first one I mentioned. I mentioned ceramic cooker, typically Primo first, sponsor of the show, of course. But I say, look, if you're going to get into it and you like charcoal, then the best thing to get is going to be a ceramic cooker, because in essence, you're buying two cookers in one. What do I mean by that? You can get a low and slow, and it holds really well, 225, 250, whatever, for your traditional barbecue stuff. Or if you want to go ahead and rip it raw, do the searing and all that stuff on steaks other than cuts, then you also have a really great ability at doing that. You can also get accessories to help you manage that fire if you don't want to learn it. And if you can get over that initial shock of price tag, because it's not $200 like a Weber kettle grill, then you have two grills in one. So it's literal. When people ask me what grill should I buy, it's one of the first two that I throw out is a ceramic cooker, which probably isn't what normal people would do. But I'm also afraid that if I'm the only one doing it, it's certainly not helping the staleness disappear.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess the way that I think about it is somebody that's new to outdoor cooking, right? And they, if they want to grill, they want hot and fast. You go gas, electric, charcoal, depending what you want. Low and slow, if they're new to it, I got to say pellet grill, because it's so easy. And I think that those companies have done such a good job saying this is easy. You get great flavor. It's wood fired flavor. You don't have to worry about fire management. So, you don't need the time that it takes to do that.
Could I make an argument that if Primo or Kamado Joe could better leverage social media or new media in general, they could jump Big Green Egg pretty quickly as the market leader?
Yeah, I'd be curious. I haven't seen any stats on where, the market share within Kamado grills, but I'd be real interested to see, how neck and neck that is. But yeah, there's definitely opportunity if you're only at a, whatever it was, 6-7% share of the overall market. Yeah, there's opportunity to be overtaken there.
And none of them seem to leverage. So outside of Jack Arnold, who's most associated with Big Green Egg, I don't even know if you're familiar with that name or not. I don't know. I couldn't sit here and mention any type of social media campaign or influencer that uses any ceramic cooker of note that helps them even start to promote to attain that influencer title.
Yeah, I don't see him much on social media either. It seems like just as a brand, Big Green Egg, and I've had amazing food off of Kamado Grill,
Yeah.
no denying that. it's all about the history and, it has such a strong following. I think that can almost be intimidating to other people too. But yeah, I think if you had more outreach through social media or something like that to show people, making great food and talk about the qualities that make it superior, I think, that's definitely something there.
Do you ever see them getting 25% of the market?
I think that'd be pretty tough with how much, like griddles are exploding and, with pellet grills. And two, what I've heard from people is specifically with Big Green Egg is, the founder has been around for a long time and they're, we're kind of waiting to see what happens with that company as a whole.
Wes Wright joining us here on the show, cookoutnews.com, his website. I don't know if you saw it or not, but Yeti and Butter Pat, which is a cast iron pan manufacturer, joined forces and released a quickly sold out $400, I don't know if it was a 12-inch cast iron pan or not, but the non-branded Yeti Butter Pat similar pan is like $350. So are we paying $50 more for the Yeti name, and now you can cook bacon on the Yeti pan next to your Yeti tumbler full of mimosa?
It does seem that way. The one that is made by Butter Pat Industries is remarkably similar to the Yeti one. I don't know how it's different. It might have other than the logo. But yeah, I mean, that's well out of my price range for a skillet. I just get some Lodge that works fine for me. If I was maybe a multiple tax brackets up, and I wanted a beautiful cast iron pan, because I mean, there's no denying that thing. It says
it's
like
smooth
perfectly
on the bottom, like
it's perfectly
the cast
smooth,
iron that I'm getting now. Like if I go to Lodge or the Sam, the cooking guy one that I have, that he sent me, it's a little, it's got texture on the bottom. But my grandfather's Wegner that I got from him after he passed away out of the house, that has like a real smooth bottom, which I certainly appreciate. But maybe that just costs more in manufacturing to make a smoother bottom than one that's got texture. That must be a cheaper way to do it.
Yeah, I think too it's with how the industry's progressed, because that was how that Butter Pat Industries, they were founded because a guy broke his grandma or great grandma's cast iron pan from the late 1800s or something like that. And so he wanted to find a replacement, and he couldn't find any that were similar in build to the way they used to build them. So they had to go through and prototype for years on new foundry methods that didn't exist anymore to create them. And they had to come up with their own just to mimic that style.
Wes, last question. When we talk about outdoor heating, you have fire pits, you have the liquid propane heat umbrellas, as I call them, and then you have the emergence of the pellet stove outside. Timber Products makes a really elite version. I had Tyson Traeger on a couple weeks ago. He sent me one that we were able to put together over the weekend, used one time, and seems to work really well. Where do you think this sector of the market is? Is this something that's going to continue to grow, or does it have a ceiling of success?
I think it'll continue to grow more than it is. It seems like we're seeing more and more manufacturers with them, but it's kind of, it's good for everyone if it succeeds, because it's a big factor is it lengthens the grilling season that we talked about earlier. If you're more comfortable outside, you're more likely to buy other products like a Solo stove. They have the Solo stove tower too, and you're more likely to grill and things like that. So I think that there's more opportunity, with what they have, especially with some of the pellet varieties that are supposed to have wider ranges and, throw off more BTUs.
Any breaking news to happen before the week closes?
Let me think. I don't think that, I mean, I never know until it's last minute, or I wouldn't say never. I usually don't know until it's last minute, but not that I'm aware of.
All right. So do this. Check cookoutnews.com, and then you will learn when I do on when the top news is breaking. And then if you miss it, of course, then you can catch Wes right here, third Tuesday of every month here at 35 past the first hour. Wes, always appreciate the time and the information. We'll see you again in July.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Greg.
You got it. Wes Wright. What do you guys think? What does the ceramic cooker market need to do in order to get up with whatever the most popular cookers are right now. 55% of people in this poll have a charcoal grill or smoker. 49% of people polled have a gas grill or smoker. And then it drops down fairly considerably from there. 18, almost 19% have an electric grill. 14% have a flat top, and 15% have a pellet cooker, which both double up, even more double up than the 6% that have a Kamado grill or smoker. So that's a bit shocking. That's not encompassing the whole live fire, but of those people polled, 6% of Kamado or ceramic cookers. That was shocking to me. Speaking of ceramic cookers, you need to get behind Primo. Hurry, pronto. What do we love about ceramic cookers? Like I was telling Wes just a minute ago, we love that you can get low and slow for barbecue. We love that you can get rip-roaring hot for high grilling temperatures of steaks and other thin cuts. But in your round ceramic cookers, getting a 2-zone fire that you really want's hard. Why? Because it's round. Enter Primo cookers and the game-changing oval design. The shape gives you the ability to execute a 2-zone setup that you desire. It also gives you the other ceramic grill benefits as well. When you break it down, there's more than 60 different ways to configure the Primo cooker, so you're only limited by your culinary imagination. They have all the accessories that you want now. A pizza grill. Yeah, a Primo grill pizza accessory. A Primo grill rotisserie. They also have the new griddle insert. They have a lot of things going on right now. You need to be keeping up with what's happening at Primo because they're now introducing accessories at breakneck speed. Oh, by the way, they have that big customer appreciation and employee appreciation thing happening that first weekend in September, like the 8th and 9th, I believe. So you want to keep information and your tabs open for that. That's something you might want to consider attending, but we'll talk to Nick Bauer about that before it actually happens. And we'll be back to wrap the first hour right after this. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Continuing to produce incredibly mediocre content in an exceptionally professional way. You're listening and watching the Barbecue Central Show. Once again, here's your host, Greg Rempe.
And we thank Wes Wright for joining us last segment, cookoutnews.com. Smoking Joe's Pit Barbecue weighing in. I think every real man needs to have a Weber kettle, a pellet smoker, a ceramic grill, a flat top, and an offset smoker. No doubt. I say start with the offset smoker and then work your way down. Also, in many interviews that I've done, both for radio and other podcasts, I'd say Weber kettle might be the one you want to start with. That's the one that a lot of people start with. And I consider that to be the gateway drug into more live fire cooking. You can do high heat cooking with that. You can do smoke roasting that Stephen Reichland talks about. You can also really work it into a low and slow cooker. You can achieve 250, 275 temperatures in there if you build the fire the right way. So you can try your hand at a pork butt or a couple slabs of ribs, brisket if you want to, especially if you get the bigger 26-inch grill, if they have those still. Ranch kettle if you have $1,000 and you're ready to spend it. I say ranch kettle, and then immediately I'm taken back to a post that Adam Perry Lang did about a week ago where he's got like 40 tomahawk steaks that he's searing. And I got to remember to ask Meathead about this. Adam Perry Lang is trying to change the lexicon in live fire cooking. He says, you know what? Reverse sear is inaccurate. Don't say reverse sear. He's calling it the reverse Maillard. Look, I'm not about to question the cooking chops of Adam Perry Lang, right? I mean, he's a Barbecue Hall of Famer. Not in the Guest Hall of Fame anymore, but we're not going to talk about that. But I don't think Maillard is a way of cooking. I think that's a reaction, a chemical reaction that's taking place as you're putting heat on the meat, like searing temperatures. But he's going to make a play for it. He's calling it reverse Maillard. That's going to be the poll question of the week next week. Should we call reverse sear reverse Maillard? Look, we got to go. We'll be right back.
This is Dion Blumenrader with Big Hoss One Sauce, and you're listening to the best show on all things barbecue with my man, Greg Rempe.
Happy to have you aboard here for the really big barbecue show.
Boing. We cook because we have to, and we grill because we want to. Hit me!
Fine, how's it going?
You have a great show. I'm a big fan.
Boing.
So what seems to be the problem here? This man looks like he's dead, and he's in the crackle. Charbono! It's all about the charbono, dude!
Succulent fish. What?
He ate 2 feet for wieners.
But listen, Lavernius, shut your face.
I'm shaking like a dog shit peach seeds.
We have top men working on it right now. Top men.
Yeah, just like that, we are into the second hour of the Barbecue Central show. We do it live every Tuesday from 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern. If you are just tuning in, you've missed the first hour. However, good news. We are recording audibly, so you can get it on podcast. First hour tomorrow, second hour on Thursday, and we'll talk about Friday here in a second. This program is originating from
Palm City, USA, Cleveland.
I've been getting a couple emails about Bomb City, USA, so I'll look to cover those as time permits here over the next handful of weeks or so. There's a lot of stuff that's been building up in the if a guest can't connect or when I have the next open segment, things that I'm going to get to. It's building. There's a lot of content that stays evergreen that I just haven't got to yet. And it's building. So at some point, we will get there. Paul Rosenberg is running in. I went to the website hoping to buy some swag and was surprised to see you don't sell any. No, I don't. Paul, you don't need to buy anything from me. You don't need to buy a hat. You don't need to buy a shirt. I'm not here to sell like this stuff. For those listening in podcast, I'm holding up my Barbecue Central show shirt. I have this. It's like my show, and I bought like 30 of them. I went through a whole merch phase 4 years ago, 5 years ago, whenever it was, 2018. Did a whole logo rebrand. Got a whole bunch of shirts made. Put them out for sale for like no money. You know how many people bought them? Like 7 people. I had to give them away. My job isn't to sell shit to you to make a couple bucks on. All I need for you to do is sit there and continually either A, tune in live on Tuesdays or hit the download button on Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. That's all I want from you. Also, if you're in the market for a grill or a rub or some type of service and a sponsor is here offering that service to you, if I can ask, please give any sponsor on this show first consideration. Don't just blindly purchase. If you're looking for sauces or rubs or grills, things like this, please give the sponsors first consideration. If you're going to buy from them and there's no checkout code like some of the companies have, some of them don't, when you call in or when you buy online in the comments section, let them know. Heard this on the Barbecue Central show. Barbecue Central show sent me. Tag them on Instagram and Twitter and tag me too so they know that we're making connections here. Because I can't ever guarantee a sponsor that we're going to increase top-line revenue by 30% the minute you come on here. I can't make everybody buy what I want them to buy. They have their own budgets. They have their own needs. But hopefully, over time, you hear the folks that are supporting the show. And when it comes time to buy whatever it is you're looking to buy and a company sponsors the show in that regard, you would give them consideration. That's all I'm asking. What a stupid trucker hat. Forget it. I'm not going to be shilling to my folks like that. I shill enough as it is. I read the Apple reviews telling me it's 113 minutes worth of commercials and 7 minutes worth of show. I get it. But to that point, I'm also not going to sell merch. It's a pain in the ass, too, as well. I could put it up on Amazon, make like $1 a shirt. You're still going to overpay for a shitty shirt? You want to pay $25 for a shirt that you're going to shrink if you don't pay attention to it in the dryer? I want to have that relationship with my fans. I want you to love me or hate me for me, not because of products or any bullshit.
Get that big stuff out of here.
We say good evening to those of you watching the show tonight through one of our video streaming platforms, Facebook and Twitch /BBQ Central Show. Also, you can watch via YouTube, which is youtube.com/@BBQ Central Show. And we will update you on the YouTube poll question of the week. When it comes to brisket and ribs, are you fatty and spares, fatty and baby back, lean and spares, or lean and baby back? Currently, 50% of you are saying fatty and spares. That's dropping. By every passing guest, it's dropping. Fatty and baby back is weighing in at 29%, and then half of that is lean and baby back, and half of that is lean and spare. So 7%, 14%, 29%, and 50% making up your 100. I thought more than 50% of us were fatty and spare folks. I mean, that's a real, true barbecue person. Like Smokin' Joe's Pit Barbecue was saying, hey, if you're a real man, you have all these different cookers. Well, if you're a real barbecue man, you're eating fatty brisket and spare ribs, right? Yes, you are. Coming up on the best moments of the Barbecue Central Show in 10 minutes or less this coming Friday, episode 287, taking you back to, again, June 18th, 2013. And as you might recall last week, the Best Moments Show is currently running a first-of-its-kind 4-part mini-series that features me, my sister Kate, and her friend Lindsay, who were in studio at the time. Last week, we talked all about barbecue baby names, and this week, somehow, the conversation moves to bacon everything. If you've never heard of a product called bacon salt, you will be properly introduced to it this coming Friday on the Best Moments Show, amongst many other things. So be sure to subscribe to the podcast feed so you can hear the second of this 4-part series. Might I suggest, if you didn't hear part 1, listening to that first, that will help you set up for what part 2 is going to sound like. Is it mandatory? No. But I would suggest, for continuity of listenership, listen to part 1, then go to part 2. You can subscribe to the show by visiting thebbqcentralshow.com/subscribe. There's a whole bunch of different ways listed there. And easily, if you don't have a podcast app, or you don't like podcast app, or you are too good for podcast apps, but you have an email address, you can subscribe to the podcast feed through email using that link as well. And don't forget, if you want to hear a guest or a segment again that you think has been lost in the archives, email John. Let him know what you'd like to hear. JON@thebbqcentralshow.com. And he'll do his best to meet your expectation. This past weekend, the famous Dave's All-Star Barbecue Series rolled into Long Beach, California, everybody. When it was all said and done, James Goff of Pork Bombin' Barbecue walked away with the grand championship. Kyle Mazutsky of Your Behind Barbecue took reserve. And as we found out last week, the next Famous Dave's All-Star Barbecue Series event is going to be happening on July 8th in Addison, Illinois. So a little time off before it makes the final run through August. I believe we're in successive weeks starting on July 8th there in the Addison, Illinois location. So if you would like more information or you would like to see the results from those past events that have already taken place, go to famousdaves.com/All-Star Barbecue Series. You've seen a lot of new things on the Instagram, especially on my feed. What have you seen recently? I put together the Charbroil Edge full-size electric grill. Yes, used it once. If you missed it, all the stuff on my story has since evaporated, but if you have any questions about it, please email me, and I will give you my one-time experience using it. We cooked steaks, and we cooked asparagus. Wanted to see if that thing could get to searing temperatures. And I have to say, shockingly surprised at both what it put on from a color and sear standpoint, and then flavor. That's all I'm going to say about that. I can talk more about that in the next coming weeks. Also, the only person in the country that has the Vita grill currently is this guy right here. And I am using it more and more, surprisingly well at holding temperatures in the oven mode. So remember, you can use 4 burners at will like a normal grill, and then there's that middle that has the thermostatic control to it. So if you want to run it at 250 or 375, whatever, you engage that portion of the grill, and then through the actual thermostatic controller that it has, not LED or electric like some of these other ones have, it will keep that temperature. It is shockingly accurate, and I am not speaking out of school here when I say if you're interested in this cooker, make sure that you are following me on social media. Keep listening to the show for updates because it might be one that becomes available. And the price point is shockingly affordable. Like, it makes you want to second guess if the thing's even going to be around after 2 years. I don't have a grill cover on it. I live in Cleveland. This thing's going to be in the elements. So we will learn together how well this thing holds up. How well is the stainless? How well are the burners? But it runs hotter than my Weber. The Weber is going to be going on Facebook Marketplace here shortly. There's no reason for me to keep it. Vita performing incredibly well. Very happy about it. Also, next week I'll be talking about the timber stove that Tyson Traeger sent me as I get more runs in on that, but I want to make sure I have all of my bearings with me. Getting in late from Houston this past weekend, I was able to assemble most stuff, but not really get to use it before we got here into show. So stay tuned for all of that stuff. Byron Chism is ready to rock here in just 1 second. Before we get to that, I'll talk to you quickly about Big Papa Smokers, the one-stop online shop for all things barbecue, a curated selection of only the best outdoor cooking and grilling supplies, getting you on the path to better barbecue results in no time. Everything on the website has been curated by Sterling Big Papa Ball himself, from the award-winning rubs and sauces, the American-made grills and smokers. You know the popular seasonings and rubs, right? Sweet Money, Cattle Prod, Cash Cow, Double Secret Steak, Little Louie's Seasoned Salt, some of my favorites. All tested on the competition circuit and in backyards. They're also the owner of Granny's Barbecue Sauce. If you're looking for a new go-to sauce, it will please everybody. Granny's traditional yet powerful flavor reminds you of why you fell in love with barbecue in the first place. And they're selling cookers. So if you're looking for a versatile smoker that's easy to use, check out that Mac 2-star General Pellet Cooker. Big Papa Smokers, the exclusive Mac dealer, even offering special packages. If you don't know what grill you need, call them, please. 877-828-0727. That's 877-828-0727, or shop their website at bigpopsmokers.com. That's BIGPOPPA smokers.com. And we are back with the legend, Butt Rub. Right after this. Stick around. Be right back.
You're listening to the Barbecue Central Show. Howard Stern, Jim Rome, Dan Patrick, and Greg Rempe. The Mountain Rushmore of talk show entertainment. Now, let's get back to the Barbecue Central Show.
Welcome back. Leading off the second hour tonight is a man who just might have pioneered the selling of barbecue rubs more than 20 plus years ago. Even the most green live fire cook has surely seen this brand online in stores and anywhere else barbecue rubs are sold. If you aren't familiar with the product, then you are in for a treat tonight. You can also watch his YouTube video that documents his journey to where he is today. We'll talk about that during our time this evening as well. Let's go ahead and race to the hotline. And welcome 2023 Barbecue Hall of Fame inductee Byron Chism to the show. Hey, Byron.
Greg, how you doing, bro?
I am
Good to see you.
absolutely fabulous. Great to see you. Before we get going tonight, we want to ask you the YouTube poll question of the week. So I'm asking everybody on YouTube and anywhere else, along with my guests, when it comes to brisket and ribs, are you fatty and spares, fatty and baby back, lean and baby back, or lean and spares? Where do you fall?
I'm for classic spares for sure, which is definitely fattier than the baby backs. As far as brisket, certainly you got to get the point involved. If you can get really good tender flat along with the point all in one slice, now we're talking.
Now we're
money.
talking, right? No doubt. 50% currently saying fatty and spares is their favorite. 29% fatty and baby back, 14% lean and baby, and 7% are saying lean and spares. What does getting into the Barbecue Hall of Fame mean in a career that has seen you achieve so much?
Well, it's an honor. That word probably gets used a lot, but there's no other way to describe that. It's flattering that you follow your heart and it takes you to great places, and you're in love with barbecue, and you're grateful to be involved with barbecue to make your living. And then your peers say, well, you know what? We think you belong in this group, and it's flattering. I'm just honored. That's the bottom line.
Be honest, Byron. Outside of the first time that you were nominated, did you even know there was such a thing as the Barbecue Hall of Fame?
Oh, I remember when it started. Sure. I mean, it was 12 years ago, something like that. And my first thought was, well, if I ever make that, I'll be dead. I'll be long gone. I don't know. It's complex because there's so many dimensions to barbecue. Yes, I have a rub, and yes, I had some success in competition barbecue, and I don't know. I didn't know if I'd ever be recognized, but I didn't think about that much. I was just doing my thing, and we'll let the path, take us where we need to go. And then last year when I got in the finalists as top 10, I was like, whoa! I mean, it came out of the blue. I was flattered and honored. I don't know. And now this year it happened again. I'm like, you're sitting on pins and needles because it's like, oh, you're in top 10. Sit around another week and we'll let you know if you do any more than that. And it's just like, it's not like you're running for office, you can go campaign or you just sit there and go, oh, well, I don't know if I'm going to make it. I don't know if I'm going to make it. Who's even voting for me? I don't know these people, whatever. I don't know.
Would you prefer to not know? Would you prefer there not be a finalist and then you're just contacted that, hey, you made it into the Barbecue Hall of Fame this year?
I don't think there's a better way to do it. I think they've all put a serious effort into it, and they really talked about it. And the fact that I made the cut, I'm just honored and flattered. I don't really know what went on in the communication circle between the voters and stuff, but I'm not sure there's a better way to do it. That like I said, though, it's an awkward week. It's like, but it was really a huge thing for me, and I think that anybody that's nominated or is a part of this, they would tell you the same thing. It's big, and I'm really grateful.
Before all the barbecue success, a younger Byron Chism was quite a passionate motocross rider. How good could you have been had you decided that was the path?
I was just tapping into the rider I always wanted to be. I really was. It took a while for me to mature enough to be to figure out how to practice, to figure out how to prepare, learn all the lessons to get strong and steady and consistent. I was just tapping into that, but I knew that it was a high school sport. My dad told me, said, this is your junior high and high school sport. If you want to race after high school, well, you'll need a job that pays you good enough to where you can do it. He said, if you want to go to college, your mom and I are here to support you and do that. So I knew, I kind of knew all along it was, to have been a professional in that field at that time really took a lot of money. I mean, I would have needed a truck, a bunch of bikes, a full-time mechanic. I mean, we were middle class, and I was just grateful that I could race at all because it's not an inexpensive sport. So it all happened like it was supposed to. And even if I would have been a professional motocrosser, and even if I was good, it was a short career. Yeah. And I'm glad I got my education, because those things you have the rest of your life, and you can use them tools.
I don't know anything about motocross. I have a couple daughters that are pretty high-level athletes, so I'm pretty versed in travel softball and travel volleyball. Life, one of them went on to play in college. And in that realm, you're quickly identified as somebody that can make it into that next level of college or not. From a motocross standpoint, is it similar? Could you, if you were an elite rider, would somebody notice that from like KTM or Honda and say, hey, we want to sponsor you, whatever you need, we'll write the ticket and you can have your team?
That's true. But to get to the point where they recognize you, you have to be a privateer. To be a privateer, that means you go on the professional circuit on your own dime. And if you've made some performances that caught people's attention, that's how you get the factory rider. But you're not going to get it from an amateur level. They don't have scouts out there looking for riders like that. So you pretty much have to financially get your way to the privateer level. And a lot of the people I raced with, they were really good. I mean, but none of us really made it to the pros. And that's what I like about barbecue. When I started competing in barbecue, all of a sudden I'm competing against the best guys around. I'm like, woo! I made it to the elite level in something. So
your journey into the rub game was a little different than what you see in more recent times. In other words, teams that see success or that dominate for some amount of time will then come out with the product after the success that they've had on the competition circuit. You had the product and then turned it into a very successful competition cooking career. Do you think it would have been possible to stay out of the contest and still be as successful as you are now with the rub business?
I think the competition barbecue really, really helped me, because I got out. It gave me an avenue to promote it. It gave me a channel to introduce it to people. And then when the Food Network started coming around and we got some television exposure, that really helped. So, and also I think the credentials, if you are my competition in the grocery industry at the time I started and getting some distribution in grocery stores, were all big companies. They weren't created by someone at the grassroots level, like mine was, and like a lot of people's are now. My competition was these big old conglomerates. So I separated myself from the pack by being a grassroots competition barbecue champion, created seasoning. And I think people, they're like, yeah, this is kind of the real stuff, so it helped me a lot. I was grateful for that. There was no flow chart. Nobody made a living from a barbecue season when I started this. And it just seemed to work. When I created it, I was like, how do I reach the most amount of barbecue people? Well, hey, they got these barbecue events. Well, I always cooked on the weekends. I never could go away to these things. So when I started marketing butt rub, it was that time where I'm like, how do I reach the most amount of barbecue people? And that's why I started going to the circuit. And that's when I realized that, hey, man, if I was one of these guys winning trophies, that would be really good for business. So that's what motivated me. And I loved it. It's been a gift to me to be able to find competition barbecue, because I could not get enough. I mean, the open road, being free to compete and being excited and practicing and just, there was no flow chart for being a champion. You just had to figure it out. That was before the classes. That there weren't really any books to speak of for competition. There was no YouTube videos, so you just had to go out there and figure it out. And I was kind of cut out for that, and it worked out pretty good.
Did you frequent barbecueforum.com?
I was.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that. That was great. Connecting cooks from all over that a lot of us maybe have not have met, but we had that like fraternity of being barbecue guys and girls, and we shared a lot and we cut up a lot, and sometimes we argued, but it was beautiful. It was a milestone for a barbecue because, like I said, it was a way to connect us all together, and yeah, I love being on the barbecue forum.
How important getting buttrub.com? Was it easy to get? Did you have to buy it off of somebody? I mean, I look at buttrub.com and you put that in the search bar. I mean, who knows what you're going to get?
Oh my gosh. It was so easy. We were on the ground floor, man. It cost me $100 to get buttrub.com where it's set up where people could order from it. $50 went to my programmer and $50 went to the domain site. And so we just were we were on the front row of all that, and it was available. And yeah, you would think somebody somewhere might have wanted to use that, but it was a piece of cake, actually.
As I look through what you offer on buttrub.com, you obviously have the flagship rub in a bunch of different sizes. There's a barbecue sauce that when we were sound checking earlier today, you said is just more recently released. It's not something that's as old as the rub. You have like a Cajun rub or something like that, and then some honey. But as somebody who has made a really good living on seasoning, how come you don't have like 20 products or 25 products to offer?
Well, Bluebell vanilla outsells all the other Bluebells, 20-1. So I honed in on what was working, and it was just something I created, and my marketing was Little Butt Rub makes everything better. So I don't know if that makes everything better, then why don't I need another seasoning? I think we were having so much success with that one product that all I saw was stores that we weren't in. I didn't think that spending time and resources on other products was to my benefit, because I knew if I got butt rub in a store, it would be successful. No matter what part of the country, wherever we put it, it was rolling. So I'm like, I've got a star here. So why go back to creating other things that may or may not be successful? I had a winner. So that's why I didn't even have a sauce for a long time. My original products was a baked beans, a sauce, and a rub. And it was the butt rub that took off. And I'm like, okay, well, we don't make the beans in, and the sauce, it's too expensive to make anyway. And it breaks. I get pallets back and it's got sauce all over the pallet, and who wants to mess with that? So the butt rub, I'm like, you go with what's working. And so that's how I become a butt rub specialist. Now, could I come up with other variations? I guess I can, but we're still getting in these stores with this product, and we're getting in food service, and we're using it for a lot of other applications. And it's got a lot. I haven't reached a peak of, well, what else we're going to do with this? It's still 26 years later, we're still growing in our percentage of stores and our percentage of sales. So I'm just rolling with until it stops working. I don't think I need to reinvent too much, really.
If you look at the past 26 years, what are the two most important things over that span that happened in the evolution of butt rub?
Man, that's a good question. It's really been more of a brick by brick thing. Steady. I never had partners. I never had an investment group. I learned to trust my instincts. I think that's probably the most important thing I ever did. I found this path, and I learned. I trust God, and God gives me intuition, and I follow my intuition. So I've just been following that path, and steady. That's the thing. More stores. But I didn't ever want to make a deal with somebody that if they bailed out on me, I would be. I never put all my eggs in a basket that could hurt me. So we spread it out and just grew steadily. So I'd say learn to trust my instincts is one. Two, and it's nothing I did, but the barbecue world, I don't know, when I was getting into it, I guess we were on the tarmac, and then over the years, it started going down, and next thing you know, it's in the air. So I guess I got in really, really early into the barbecue boom, and I don't know that it's still growing. It's amazing how big this thing's gotten. So it's not something I did, but it's just, I think, the biggest factor in the fact that we've been able to ride this big wave of barbecue.
Does anyone sell more rub than you?
We've been consistently in the grocery business. We've been consistently in the top 3 for a long time. There's quarters where you add butt rub. Butt rub is one product but with different sizes. You add that up. We've been in lead position many times the last couple of years. So I think, and that's the pipeline, the grocery stores. I mean, I knew when I started, I'm like, this will be a part-time job if I don't get in the grocery stores. And that was before they were in the hardware stores. That was before internet orders were like they are now. So I knew I had to be in the grocery stores, and it was almost impossible, but we were able to make that happen somehow. And, you start getting a little success, and then people join in with you. And then, the success rewards you by offering you new opportunities. And so we just kind of kept climbing and riding that wave. So it's an unlikely success story. And that's what I love about the documentary. It kind of, once you watch it, it's like, dang, man, how did they pull that off? I don't know. But it's been a gift for sure.
Towards the end of that documentary, it states that over the life of business, Butt Rub has sold $50 million in top line there. That's a big number. You ever been approached?
That's a big number. In the first few years, I think the first year was like $1,200. So
you got to start somewhere, right?
Yeah, well, we doubled every year for a long time. That's true. It's been a steady climb. Our sales chart looks like a nice staircase. I call it the stairway to heaven. But slow and steady. It's really not been anything. It's just been a steady climb, and I guess I'm grateful for that. It's been more manageable, and I've had the staff around. I hadn't been shorthanded, or we didn't struggle to meet orders. We've had good alliances with our co-packers. It's been a manageable thing, and I think I would prefer the way, if I had to choose, I think we did the right thing. A lot of companies now, they get investment groups, and they just go for it, and they're piling money into marketing, and they're rolling the dice. It's like, well, we think this is going to make it, but we don't know for sure if it will. And a lot of them disappear because they come in with a blaze of glory, and then you don't see them again.
So let's look at that from a different perspective. If the life of the product has generated somewhere in the neighborhood of $50 million, have you been approached 1 or 10 times by companies saying, hey, let me stroke you this $35 million check, you walk away, and we're going to take over Butt Rub?
There's been people that are interested in that, but I haven't pursued that really seriously at this point. But I think that's the natural life cycle of a product. You get it to a certain point, and you've done all the test marketing and R&D for a really major company, so you're of value to them. You've got a following. You've proved that you've got something marketable. I mean, if a little guy like me can have a consistent growth over the years and sales, yeah, I might be a product that some big company would look into. But I haven't really looked for that. There'll be a time in my life where that will be the way to go, but we're not there yet.
Where can people watch the documentary?
Well, it's YouTube. It's called BBQ Dreams, Barbecue Dreams, the Butt Rub Story. And it's also the link on buttrub.com on the homepage. Now on Facebook, we've got the Butt Rub Club, and that has the links also. And that's how we communicate with our users about everything Butt Rub and so forth.
A barbecue legend, a rub pioneer, Byron Chism, joining us here on the show, and the 2023 Barbecue Hall of Famer, buttrub.com, the website, of course. Byron, appreciate the story, the look back here, and some of that sage wisdom as you pass it along to folks considering getting into that rub business. Appreciate the first interview, and let's do it again soon.
That sounds great, Greg. Thank you for having me.
You got it. Byron Chism right there. Your 2023 Barbecue Hall of Fame class member, amongst the others that made it in this year, and a pioneer of selling rub. And like I had mentioned in the interview, somebody that did it in reverse than how you see it now. Not successful first in competition and then bringing a product to market. Had the product. By the way, we didn't get into it then. We could probably talk about it in a subsequent interview, but a classically trained chef, went to culinary school, worked in kitchens, all that, and then devised the butt rub and had this great product. Went to competitions and then decided, hey, like you said, maybe I should cook at this stuff too. Then became a really good cook. Now he's in the Hall of Fame. Daniel Vaughn is ready to go. So why make him wait? We won't. We'll be back right after this.
You're listening to the Barbecue Central Show. Let's get back to a guy who has more experience giving you his opinion than he actually has cooking. Once again, here's your host, Greg Rempe.
And we thank Byron Chism for joining us last segment. This portion of the show being brought to you by Pit Barrel Cooker, the most unbelievable outdoor cooking device on the planet. Available in 3 sizes with a host of accessories. If you're a beginner, if you're a professional, it doesn't matter. It's just a cooker you want to add to the arsenal. Visit pitbarrelcooker.com and tell them the Barbecue Central Show sent you. Helping me close the show tonight, the barbecue editor for Texas Monthly Magazine. You also see him on this show quarterly throughout the year as we talk about things happening in Texas and the barbecue world in general. I am, of course, talking about our good pal and Buckeye, Daniel Vaughn. Daniel, great to have you. We have a YouTube poll question of the week. Oh, wait. You there? You on mute? Well, I can barely hear you. Can you do me a favor and close the browser and come back in? I can kind of hear you, but I feel we are in a bad connection for whatever reason. Just go ahead and close that browser and come right back, and we'll be happy to have you. Make a mark here on the podcast part of it for you folks.
A barbecue.
Wait a second. Now, hold on. Daniel. What is going on? No. It's like I want to hear you, but I can't hear you. I can hear you say hello, but very muffled. Nope. No. It's like it's like we have a soundproof pane between us. Oh. No, a little better. Let me see here. Yeah, no, it's all the same settings for me. Any way you can dump the mic? Just go on the earbuds by chance? I got nothing there. Of course, the stranger thing is you obviously can hear me just fine. Yeah, of course. Yeah. Are you able to dump the mic and just use the air or the headphone mic? You'll have to, of course, close out and come back in again, or hit the reconnect button. Ooh. You know when somebody disconnects when they look like that. This is what happens when we travel. This now makes me scared for what's going to be coming up in July. I'm not even telling you about it. Daniel.
Can you hear this?
All right, we're going to have to run with that. Not sure
Okay.
exactly what's going. Like I can almost hear you on the microphone, but it's like
I don't know,
muffled
man.
as it
I'm
gets.
sorry.
That's all right.
I'm here in a Days Inn in Lexington, Tennessee, and who knows if there's Wi-Fi issue. I have no idea.
What's going on in Lexington, Tennessee?
Well, they're going to be cooking whole hog at B.E. Scott's Barbecue tomorrow morning. I'll be out there checking out their West Tennessee style whole hog. Zach Parker has been running the place for quite a while now, and yeah, he makes a mean whole hog. I was actually at his house for dinner, trying some of the whole hog that came off the pit earlier today. It's still delicious.
So we appreciate you traveling and doing the show at the same time here and making your quarterly visit, certainly. I wanted to start tonight with the YouTube poll question of the week that we're asking everybody. When it comes to brisket and ribs, are you fatty and spares, fatty and baby back, lean and baby back, or lean and spares?
I am lean and spares.
Really? Lean?
Yes.
I don't believe that for 1 second. Why are you lying on the show? I thought we were courageous and honest.
We are courageous and honest.
Wow.
And here's the thing is, first off, both when I'm evaluating barbecue, when I'm evaluating a brisket, the lean tells me a whole lot more about how well you can cook than the fatty side does. And the spare ribs, that shouldn't even be part of the poll question. I mean, who's going to choose baby backs when there's the possibility of a spare? We got all that thick, juicy meat, and then you've got the rib tip included. I mean, that rib tip, like that part you pull off the very top,
that's gold.
Of the very end of the rib tip, that is my favorite bite of rib. Whether it's spare or whatever, that is the best bite of rib to me, and you can't get that on a baby back.
50% of the voting public tonight saying fatty and spares. That's where I'm living as well. Fatty and baby back is taking 29%, and lean and baby back taking 14%. Lean and spares are taking 7%. And you're adding to that, by the way, because I know you didn't vote on YouTube, but we don't question people's choices. We're just asking questions here tonight. So let's start here this evening, and it's not...
Well, hold on, though.
Go ahead.
But in that poll, I think just people who love barbecue and who consume barbecue content like this are taught that they're supposed to love fatty more than anything else, right? And I love a great bite of fatty brisket.
I don't think that's not true.
How much of it can you really eat?
I don't know how you
can
can
eat a lot more lean brisket.
Why? I don't know how you can come to the conclusion that people think that they have to like fatty. I don't believe that. I think if the lean. Now we're getting into preface everything by personal opinion here. A perfectly cooked slice of fatty and a perfectly cooked slice of lean, to me, fatty wins all day long. It's everything I want, right? It's aesthetically more pleasing. It's got all the mouthfeels that I like, and the taste I find to be better. Again, I was at Truth Barbecue for the second time in my life last week.
I saw the photos.
Yes,
they look great.
Great photo, and I asked for fatty, but two of those slices had both. It was like right where the junction must have been. So I had the top was fatty, the bottom was a lean, and so I was able to.
Was it possibly fourth slice?
Definitely not the fourth slice. I asked for it, and the guy looked like he was going to stab me right in the eyeball with his knife. And so I was able to evaluate, right? And I still like a best cooked piece of fatty over lean, but that's just me.
Well, now that lean part that you're talking about underneath the fatty, like that's the worst part of the brisket at all. Like, I mean, that's just it's basically sacrificial. When I say lean, I'm talking about the front end of the brisket with the fat cap on top. And of course, like a perfectly cooked slice that's juicy and tender and all that, with the fat cap, with all the seasoning and the smoke, and to me, that's the perfect combination.
All right, so we agree to disagree, and guess what? We're allowed to do that on the show. Of course, we can agree or disagree and still be friends, no problem. I wanted to start tonight by saying, or having you talk a little bit about the passing of a few notable barbecue folks here over the last 2 weeks, really. Leanne Miller passes away suddenly middle of last week, and then the week, maybe the week and a half before that, a guy who has appeared many times on the show, kind of as your counterpoint folk at San Antonio Express News, Chuck Blount, the sports/barbecue writer there, and he passed away suddenly as well. If we take somebody that kind of sits in your editorial chair there with Chuck, what do you know about him, and how do you feel he expressed Texas barbecue the way he did?
Yeah, well, I know he was a guy with a true love for barbecue, a true love for San Antonio barbecue as well, which is what he covered. Both of their deaths just so shocking, so sudden. Chuck was posting photos of really just like having fun with his family, and then the next thing he saw was his wife explaining that he had something that he like a health issue that he was not going to recover from, and it was really just came out of nowhere. But yeah, I mean, he was always just joyful about barbecue too. He really loved it. He didn't so much love the critiquing part, I think, as much as others. Really just enjoyed eating and covering barbecue in San Antonio, and really, even further outside of that. But San Antonio was his beat, and I think he knew it better than anybody.
He was consistently on the show doubling down on this success of the smoked burger at barbecue restaurants, and how, where some had them already, he was just adamant that everybody and their mother was going to be adding it onto their menu, because not only were they delicious, they were going to be a revenue producer. They didn't cost a lot. You could use whatever was being left over from you trimming up some of the other beef. All these things made sense to him, and it was going to be like the next biggest thing. Still hasn't really caught on from what I understand, although some places still continue to have them. Is that something that you see happening at some point, or is it just wishful thinking on Chuck's part?
Oh, I don't think it's wishful thinking at all. I think you're maybe ahead of yourself there saying that it hasn't happened. It certainly has in Texas. Seeing a smash burger or a smoked burger is now really commonplace. And it's become, not surprising to me. I wrote an article basically saying that as well, that like if you have all this trim left over, and you usually would make sausage with it like traditionally, if you don't maybe have the capability to make sausage, or the time, or just don't have the labor to produce sausage of your own, then the next best place for it to go is in burgers. Like, for God's sake, don't throw it away. If you spent all that money already on the brisket, like, use it for something. So I have seen quite a few. I mean, I'm tempted by smash burgers constantly because they just look delicious, and it's not barbecue. And if I've been eating, 4 or 5 places, that smash burger looks tempting.
The other person is Leanne Miller, of course, the founder of the barbecue. And, I think many would consider her to be a force of nature to some degree, very firm in her beliefs, and very groundbreaking in an industry that is dominated by males, and perhaps some very stereotypical males. She is one that was really looking to break the mold, A, but B, producing some of the best barbecue in Texas.
Yeah, absolutely. Her and Allie Clem, the only wife and wife team that I knew to own a barbecue joint in Texas. When I wrote about her and wrote about her life here recently, after her shocking death, I really reflected on the fact that she was thrust into owning this barbecue joint. She never really had planned to own it. She wanted to be the money behind her brother's place, and basically to recoup the business after she famously fired her brother. She got much more involved in the business. She hired John Lewis. Her and Allie both became a lot more involved in the business. And then John Lewis moved on to Charleston years ago, and it's really been Allie and Leanne who's been running it in Austin, and routinely making best of lists, whether it's locally or statewide or across the country. So La Barbecue has really just been an incredible place for a long time, and it's just a couple of years ago that they finally found their like forever home, their brick and mortar that they've got now on Cesar Chavez. And so it really just seemed like they had finally gotten this foundation of running the barbecue joint that they had always wanted to run, since opening La Barbecue. And then she's just gone. Just died suddenly, really, while her and Allie were together preparing for an event. They were preparing food together for an event that they had that evening. And Allie said she just, they needed to, she collapsed and they needed to call the ambulance immediately. And it's a really, it was shocking is the word that I keep coming up with, because it was truly a shock when I heard about it.
I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but you can look through the immediate lineage of this family and see shocking deaths all over the place. Leanne, her brother died, is it a year ago? Maybe a little longer than that, maybe not even. And then was there another brother too that has passed away as well?
No. So Wayne Miller is still around. He's
right.
He's running Louis Miller Barbecue in Taylor. So Leanne passed away at 51, and it was 18 months ago that John, her brother, died at 52. Their father, Bobby, he was 69, but went to bed very much healthy and had a heart attack and died in his sleep, before he ever got to retire from the business. And so, yeah, it is a family, a barbecue family, very, notable statewide. And, the fact that they've seen so much tragedy is, it's tough.
She had quite a secondary career going as a photographer.
Yeah. So she had told me a story when I interviewed her way back in, I think it was 2013 or 2015, about the fact that she went into her photography career, basically went to, left Taylor, Texas, where Louis Miller was, right near Austin, and went out to California, went to photography school there, then moved to New York to start a photography career. And in doing so, got her stopped by the Texas Monthly office while she was back in town in Taylor, stopped in Texas Monthly's office in Austin to ask them if they needed any work done, needed any photography work. And that ended up being her first assignment, was from her essentially cold calling them. And, she went on to have, over a dozen covers for Texas Monthly. And she said in the 2008 barbecue issue, that was her shot on the cover. And she went to all the top 5 barbecue joints to do all of those shoots as well. So those famous photos of Tootsie and Carrie Bexley at Snow's Barbecue, and they made #1 sort of out of nowhere. Those were photos that she took. And photos of Louis Miller, photos of her father, she took for that issue as well. So it was a really personal assignment for her as well.
Changing gears up a little bit, a super fan of this show, someone I have actually been following in 2023 for the Barbecue Central show, Podumentary. His name is Joe Martinez, and he's the owner and pitmaster over at Smoking Joe's Pit Barbecue in El Paso, Texas. You were out there recently. Just by chance you were hearing about it? Or, I mean, I'm now, since I've been in Houston a bunch of times here since November, I'm beginning to understand the greatness, and I say greatness as in width and mileage that this great state has. I was telling somebody, hey, if you're in Austin, you don't want to wait in line for 5 or 6 hours at this, just drive out to El Paso and you can not wait in line over there. And like, well, yeah, what's a 12-hour car ride to go out to El Paso? So I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. But how do you catch wind of Smoking Joe's Pit Barbecue?
Well, honestly, I heard about Smoking Joe's from the owner of Desert Oak Barbecue. So they're Desert Oak Barbecue's there in El Paso, and Richard Funk runs that with his wife. And Richard is neighbors with Joe in El Paso. They live in the same neighborhood. And when Joe was trying to understand the barbecue business itself, he went to work at Desert Oak for a few for a few weeks anyway, to sort of understand how the scheduling worked and how the cook schedule worked and all that before he opened Smokin' Joe's. And so it was Richard who told me about Smokin' Joe's first off, and I just had to go try out that smoked burger that he had on the menu. It was fantastic.
Your opinion on the food at first blush?
I mean, as soon as I got the tray, I knew this was going to be a good one. Like the ribs were just had that glaze on them, big spare ribs, and had a glaze on them that was just like sparkling in the sunlight. It was pretty hot out there. It was a warm day in El Paso, and not a whole lot of shade out there in that food truck park. But you can drive through the beer barn right next door if you need something to go. And yeah, the sides, he does this Texas chili, which he put beans in, which in Texas, like calling it chili and putting beans in it causes an argument every time.
Yeah.
And he made a really great one. But yeah, the ribs, the brisket, I mean, it was the best bite of brisket that I've had in El Paso for any barbecue joints that are out there. It was really spot on that day. And yeah, so I wrote about the place and really just trying to get more folks to go there, because he had said that he had quite a bit of business at 11 o'clock when he opened, but when I got there at noon, I was the only customer, and that's a shame for a place of that quality.
Is his specific location a hurt or a help to him in the truck park?
Well, I mean, here's the thing about El Paso is like the barbecue culture in El Paso is not it's not developed quite the way it is in Houston, Austin, Fort Worth, San Antonio, Dallas, all those, right? So like suffering for your barbecue is not really something El Pasoans are willing to do. So being in a food truck park with some picnic tables and basically having to eat in the sun or take it to go, I think it is a bit of a detriment to his business. I think if he were to make a jump to go into a building, then that would be better for him. But that's obvious, right? I mean, being in a restaurant is better for most any barbecue business, but that's a big jump when you're just purchased a food truck and you purchased your 1,000-gallon smoker that you've got on a separate truck right next to it. So he's got a lot invested in that place.
He's in El Paso. He potentially could be poised to be barbecue king of El Paso. I mean, you said yourself the food is great. What if he pulled up stakes and drove to Dallas or Fort Worth or one of these other within Texas barbecue meccas or strongholds? Could he see the same amount of success, or would he be watered down?
Well, I mean, obviously, any barbecue business that opens up in any of those cities is going to be watered down to a point. I mean, there's just so many options. You've got to find a neighborhood that's thirsty for it, right? That is underserved, because these days there are just so many options. I think he's smart to stay out in El Paso.
So as I had mentioned earlier, I was at Truth Barbecue. First time I went, hour and a half wait. That was pushing my limit, right? I mean, I've often said on the show, I wait for nothing. But I waited an hour and a half.
Incognito, huh?
No. I went, first time, hour and a half, got the food, got everything. It was great. So I felt rewarded. And then when we got into Houston Wednesday, it was later. I pulled in that parking lot 3 o'clock. No line. Jumped in. Now, where do we suffer? We're out of ribs. We're out of like everything except brisket and turkey. Good news. All we wanted was brisket and turkey, really, knowing going in at 3 o'clock there's going to be some potential issues with proteins. All of the desserts were there. I got a gallon of banana pudding. My wife got the chocolate
Very
cake.
important.
You know all the desserts are great, right?
Yes.
So is there a strategy that you would offer folks that aren't interested in waiting lines? How to circumvent that? Is it showing up later? Are you running the risk of selling out? Is it just going to the not as well-known place 2 blocks over? What do you tell people?
Well, I mean, first off, whether it's worthwhile to stand in that line is really up to each individual, right? So you said you waited an hour and a half in line at Truth, and the fact that you were going back means that hour and a half was worth it to you. Like, it was worth returning. Now, you didn't have to do it again, but you were, I assume, willing to if you went back.
Well, if there was a line, we were gonna either like call in to get curbs. I was not waiting again, But just luckily happened there was no line. Now, in my non-defense, Sunday, was that a 5-hour line wrapping around for Father's Day? Was that a 6-hour line? Like, what the hell? And it was 187 degrees.
Yeah, it's like for Mother's Day, right? I saw a lot of places advertising, like, please, just come in on Saturday. It's going to be so much easier. Just eat your Mother's Day brunch on Saturday.
Yeah.
It's like, eat your Father's Day barbecue on Saturday. And that's actually what I did. I was in Amarillo at the time. And so we had some barbecue there on Saturday and went to a steakhouse as well. So, yeah, we had a good time there. But yeah, I think you're right that there is a certain strategy there, as long as you're willing to do without some of the cuts that they offer, is to go in at 2 or 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock might be pushing it for some places, but sneaking in at 1:30 or 2 o'clock, I mean, why not give it a try? Especially if you're there on a weekday. I mean, if you go into Austin and you want to go to Franklin Barbecue, like, don't go. It's Saturday at 6 a.m. Go try it on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. At 1:30 in the afternoon, and chances are you can just walk right in the door and maybe stand behind 15 people and get your barbecue. Now, again, you might be out of ribs, but these places in Texas, especially those that are so well known for their brisket, like Truth and Franklin, those are the things that's the thing they do not want to run out of until they have to close the doors, right? And so a place like Truth is going to have brisket. That's going to be the last thing they sell out of. Same with Franklin and many of the other big names out there. So if it's brisket that you're after, that is a great strategy. Same thing with Cadillac Barbecue in Dallas. It's really, you got to get there early. They open at 10:30, and you've got to get there early if you want their specials, because their specials are going to be gone by that 1:30 or 2 o'clock mark. But chances are they're still going to have, some of the basics, and you're still going to get a great meal. And, hate to break it to everybody, but you don't need 4 meats every time.
Yeah, right. I mean, push back from the table a little bit there, Porky, and enjoy, as I said in a Twitter post to somebody, I was willing to sacrifice getting something of everything for getting a few things that I really wanted, and that's what they had at Truth, so it was a successful time back.
And you got to really enjoy your brisket, right? And your turkey. You didn't have to be like, oh, I got to save a little because I got the burnt ends over here. I got the ribs here. I got this link of sausage that needs attention. You just get to enjoy what's in front of you.
And as a bonus, just walking out of the back was Leonard Botello himself. So I'm able to say, hey, Len, come over here. You remember me? And I think he said he did, but I doubt he did. And, what a great guy, very open. We had, 5 or 10 minutes of conversation. I mean, I guess I had the shirt on, so I was hoping I had made a little bit of an impression since he was on the show, like a handful of months ago. But I never assume anybody knows me. And we had a great conversation. He's like, hey, if you're in for a couple more days, give me a shout. We'll have a couple beers, whatever. And, he was very engaging. And obviously it was a very busy and very hot day. So I was happy to just meet him. He makes me look like a big shot in front of my wife, who's sitting there and going, wow, you actually know this guy that you said you knew. So, I come out looking like a winner. Everybody wins. We got brisket. We got turkey. What can I tell you? Daniel Vaughn is joining us. Yes, go ahead.
Where did you all go out for a beer?
Kidding? I don't go out with anybody. I was like, hey, thanks. No way. I got we have when we go to Houston. There are some more pressing issues to stay on task with, and so
there's an itinerary.
Yes, unfortunately. So, but we were happy to stop back in there and continue to have good barbecue. I look forward to having another stop there when we go back, and we'll see if we can't make it 3 for 3. I hope you have some great whole hog tomorrow as you do your whole hog run there.
I know it's going to be.
You are a valued quarterly member of our team here on the show, and I can't wait until the next time we revisit and talk nonsense and live fire technology.
Yes, we'll get the microphone taken care of before then. But,
all right, sounds good. Daniel, always appreciate the time.
All right, great talking to you.
You too. Daniel Vaughn right there, Texas Monthly's barbecue editor, tmbbq.com. If you are looking to get caught up on the Leanne Miller passing and you'd like to hear a little bit more of insight from Daniel Vaughn on that, then go ahead and read his latest article. Again, that's tmbbq.com. And that is going to do it for us tonight. Kind of got lost in our conversation there. So we're a little over, but we'll wrap it up right now. All the way back in the first hour, it was Mac Plummer from Loco Cookers, lococookers.com, talking about that 36-inch flat-top griddle. And then we had Wes Wright from cookoutnews.com talking about the business of barbecue. And then in the second hour, we let off with a legend, Byron Chism, buttrub.com, his website. And closing it out with quarterly guest Daniel Vaughn from Texas Monthly, tmbbq.com. Big show planned for you next week. It's the fourth Tuesday, so we got the embedded correspondence. We got Derek Riches making his return, amongst others, so stay tuned for that. I will also start to share with you what the middle of July is going to look like with the show. Not sure exactly what the logistics are going to be. That could be a best of show on the 11th, and then it could be a on remote show on the 18th. Not sure. We got to figure out some technological logistics there, but I'll keep you up to speed on programming notes. So how do I always leave you? September 11th, 2001. I will never forget. Until next Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern, this is your program host and proud U.S. American, Greg Rempe. Good night now.